Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night to you whenever it is that you're seeing this broadcast. It's time for our weekly nugget. Our weekly nugget today comes from the book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 11. I found this and listened to it. This is Jesus' hope for his children. Isaiah 40, verse 11. He will lead his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom and gently lead those with young. This is for all of us, but I especially want to talk to those of you who've got family. Did you hear the references? He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom. I heard a pastor talk about a shepherd had gone to interview a modern day shepherd, somebody in this day and age that had sheep, to see if they could understand the references that Jesus spoke about when he said, "My sheep know my voice." The shepherd said back in Jesus' time, the shepherd would spend so much time with the sheep that he became intimately acquainted with each sheep. He knew their stripes. He knew their distinct voices. Kind of like you and maybe the pets you have in your house, or especially like you and your own children. Anyways, the shepherd and sheep spent so much time together, working together, traveling together, sleeping together, playing together, that the sheep began to be intimately acquainted with the smell of their shepherd and with his voice. He went on to say that the shepherd was so acquainted with the sheep that in the midst of all other sheep, he could call them and only his sheep would get up and follow. When I heard this one, it really knocked my socks off. He could change his tone, give the same call, and only one sheep would come because they knew he was calling them by the shift in the tone of his voice. You can see it, can't you? Now you understand what Jesus meant when he said, "My sheep will hear my voice." God went on to enumerate. He says, nowadays, we don't take care of sheep that way. We've got all kinds of ways of tracking the sheep and getting the sheep to go where we want. We can herd them by helicopter. We can put tracking devices on them. We've got electronics that will let us know exactly where the sheep are at all times. He says, I've got sheep, but my sheep don't know my voice. See, so much electronics has gotten in between the relationship between the shepherd and his sheep that when a shepherd comes in the midst of his sheep now, they scatter because they don't know his voice. Family members, when the voice of the shepherd comes, are our electronics getting in the way? Now, don't get me wrong. If you're watching this, you're using electronics. I'm not mad about your electronics. They can be very helpful. They can be very useful, but there's the danger that when the shepherd calls us, We don't recognize his voice because we're used to the call of the electronics in our lives. Today, how about you get familiar? Not just you. Notice, he didn't just call the sheep. He was interested in the lambs. Stop waiting for your children to grow up before they're old enough to have a relationship with God. No. He's relevant in their lives right now. Can we spend some time together as a family, hearing and listening to the voice of the shepherd? That's my challenge, and that's my time. Till next time, chew on this. God bless you, and have a great week.